Welcome to This Explainer. If you're joining us today, chances are you absolutely know the feeling of those late-night internet searches for answers. You might be a parent or maybe a caregiver of a neurodiverse child, endlessly scrolling through forums and articles, just looking for practical, gentle support for the ones you love most. Well, take a deep breath because you are in exactly the right place. Today we're unpacking 5 ways personalized stories help with sensory overload. We're going to break down some truly fascinating insights and highly effective strategies that can literally change your family's daily life. So let's just jump right in. The world can suddenly feel too loud, too bright, or too overwhelming. I really want to start by just validating what you and your child experience every single day. Parenting a neurodiverse kid means you're constantly navigating environments that, let's face it, just weren't built for them. A simple everyday trip to the grocery store or a fun family birthday party. It can flip from completely fine to totally frightening in a split second. We've all been there, right? Holding our breath in the cereal aisle, hoping for the best. Recognizing just how quickly the environment can become a source of profound stress is the very first step toward actually helping them. So let's ground our discussion for a second. What is sensory overload? Basically, it's when the brain receives way more input from the senses than it can actually process. This is incredibly common for kids with autism, ADHD, or sensory processing disorder. And here is the absolutely crucial point we need to remember. We need to reassure ourselves and our kids that this is a true physical neurological response. It is absolutely not a behavioral choice. Their little brains are just completely flooded with data. Understanding that completely shifts our perspective. Instead of trying to, fix a behavior, we realize we need to support an overwhelmed nervous system. Which brings us to the first big way we can help. Section 1, the power of predictability, and why knowing what happens next matters.
A neurodiverse brain desperately craves predictability. It acts like an anchor when the whole world feels chaotic. But think about what we usually do versus what actually works. Telling a child to take deep breaths right in the middle of a massive meltdown? Yeah, that rarely works, right? Their logical brain is completely offline in that moment. But what if we use narrative rehearsal? This means reading a story beforehand where the child, who is the main character, successfully uses those breathing techniques. By letting your kid read a story about themselves, successfully navigating that exact challenge before it ever happens, the strategy becomes concrete. It becomes something they can actually remember.
Okay, let's move right along to Section 2, building a sensory toolkit. We're looking at concrete tools for overwhelming moments.
You see, customized stories are an absolutely perfect vehicle to introduce physical coping tools. They can turn strange new interventions into familiar, comforting friends. We're talking about essential toolkit items here. Noise-canceling headphones, calming sounds, maybe some fidget toys or stress balls, having a quiet retreat space, or even deep pressure activities like a big hug or a firm shoulder squeeze. Now imagine actually writing these specific items into your child's personalized story. The hero of the story, your child, starts to feel overwhelmed by loud music. So what do? They reach for their trusty blue headphones. Because they've read about their hero self using these items, they are so much more likely to recognize their own physical cues and reach for those exact same items when they need them in the real world. It's a total game changer.
And that brings us perfectly to Section 3, validating their experience and casting the child as the capable hero. In these stories, your child isn't just reading some generic book. They are the capable hero of their own narrative. We aren't reading them a story about a character who has a problem they need to fix. Instead, the story delivers this profound, empowering message. Your experience is real, it's valid, and you can handle it. Seriously, take a second to let that sink in. Think about how empowering it is for a neurodiverse child to internalize that message. When they see themselves successfully managing sensory challenges right there on the page, we are showing them profound empathy. We're literally handing them the confidence to tackle their own reality.
And here is the truly fascinating part. The science beautifully backs all of this up. Recent 2026 research confirms that resources offering multiple pathways for engagement are incredibly effective. We're talking specifically about personalized stories with diverse visual representations. They don't just teach a lesson, they provide equitable access and highly personalized experiences for neurodiverse learners. It literally proves exactly why customized, representative resources work so much better than one-size-fits-all abstract advice.
Now for Section 4, creating calm-down routines and restoring the nervous system. Surprisingly, simply sitting and reading a familiar story where your child is depicted in a safe, regulated state can actively trigger their parasympathetic nervous system. It physically shifts them right out of that stressful fight-or-flight response and restores a real sense of calm.
So we know exactly why this works. Now, let's talk about Section 5, putting it into practice and crafting your child's story.
Okay, here is your blueprint. 4 concrete steps. Step 1. Introduce the situation with their character feeling okay. You want to set a really positive baseline. Step 2. Show the exact moment when things start to feel overwhelming. Step 3. Have their character use a specific coping strategy, like grabbing those noise-canceling headphones. And Step 4. Always end with success and a return to calm. The real magic here, it's repetition. The more your child reads this specific story arc, the more automatic these coping responses become in their actual everyday life.
Let's move to our final section. Families are finding this helps. It's all about practical application. Now, creating these stories by hand used to take literally hours of drawing and writing. I mean, who has time for that? But today, tools like Bright Kids AI do the heavy lifting for parents. Just look at their child profile tool. It lets you input your child's name, their reading level, and even their absolute favorite toy. Parents securely add these details, and the profile acts kind of like a creative brief. This means the AI-generated stories you get don't feel generic at all. They feel handcrafted and deeply, deeply personal to your child, pulling in their unique interests and their current learning goals to really make the narrative stick.
So how are families actually using this day to day? Well, here is mental rehearsal in action. Families are generating a new, personalized story weekly, usually right before an anticipated challenge. Prepping for a trip to the doctor, generate a story. Got a busy family gathering coming up? Generate a story. You can include the specific triggers they'll face, like bright lights or a ton of noise, and intentionally depict your child successfully using a practice strategy. It completely changes the dynamic of an overwhelming event simply because the child has already seen themselves succeed.
We've covered the science of sensory overload, the incredible power of narrative predictability, and how to build a sensory toolkit right into the pages of a book where your child is the capable hero. The tools are absolutely out there to make this a reality for your family. Which leaves me with one final, very important question for you to think about today. What scenario will your child's first hero story tackle? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today. You've got this.